Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. Got a brand new video for you guys today. We got a massive 11-game slate in the association today. But before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, with the video, like always, I appreciate you guys drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, it's the first time ever here, and you have not, as of yet, become part of the DFS Zone community here at DFS Zone, the only thing you have to do is to subscribe down below, put on your post notification, that bell icon, make sure you turn that on. This way you don't miss out on any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos. With that being said, today is Wednesday, November the 14th, 2018. 11 games on tap for us tonight in the association, and I'm going to get right to it. I do have a value 5, a stud 5, and a value 5 for you guys today. We're going to go right into point guard, and I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to go in right to Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is whom I am thinking of as my stud for me today. I love the entire matchup. He's averaging 21 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, pretty much 5 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists, 38.8. Pretty much you round that off to about 39 fantasy points per game. At 8,900, you need about 44 here on Fanduel. And on DK, he's $8,000, which you only need 40 there. We know he has 50, 55 plus upside, so that is definitely a bonus. We're going to go right over to the Fantasy Cruncher and Kyrie right here. And he's been playing well, man. Look at all this green here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of his last 6 games. He's been smashing value and exceeding it. His price tag is coming up, but then again, he is about a 9K player. So we got to still take advantage of the 8,500 while it's still here. The minutes and everything are all there. His usage rate is still very, very high, pretty much 26 to 27%, pretty much on average. Look at the shots. He's taking about maybe 18, 19 shots per game. And look at the threes. Easily about, I don't know, it's about 7, maybe 7 or 8 threes per game on average. I mean, he's just taking tons of shots. The minutes are there. He's averaging pretty much, I would say, what about maybe 32 to 33 minutes per game on average, pretty much over the course of the season. And then, of course, he just brings the other things. He'll give some assists. He'll go and get some rebounds. And then, of course, he is able to defend. I mean, 5 steals in his last game. He's at 11 steals in the last 3 games and 2 blocks. So he's playing excellent ball, double digit, as far as coming from the floor. I mean, he's been playing fantastic. He's going up against Chicago. Chicago, even this year, well, last year, he played one time, 44 fantasy points, did exceed value by just a few fantasy points in 2016-17. He had a 55 spot against them. Obviously, he was injured quite a bit last year. But, again, now, man. Chicago 18th, as you can see here, in defending point guards this year. They're 27th in fantasy points per game allowed thus far this year. So they are near the bottom. They're allowing a whopping 37.8 fantasy points per game. You round that off to about 38 fantasy points per game. They did give up 50 to Drew Holiday, 58 to Oladipo, 51 to Curry, 46 to Kimba, and also given up 28 to Mr. Sexton, the rookie, and Mr. Trier of the New York Knicks, 33. So, I mean, they've given up quite a bit of points. So I really think Kyrie Irving is in an excellent position today to do very, very well here against the Chicago Bulls. So my stud of the day there at point guard is Mr. Kyrie Irving. As far as value, I definitely want to take advantage of the Brooklyn situation. I have told you guys that I've liked Dinwiddie, and I've played him a couple of times. He's come through for him already. I'm going to go and pretty much discuss him today. I think at 5,800, we know that he's going to get a bump up in minutes, and he's going to definitely take more shots. Obviously, there's a bump up on Crabbe, as well as maybe Mr. Carroll and the whole new Brooklyn Nets team, due to the fact that they lost their leading scorer in Karis LeVert for a while. But Spencer Dinwiddie, 5,800. You pretty much need 28 from him here. And on DK, he's 4,900. You only need 24. I love that price a lot better on DK because it's right about where his average is at. He's averaging about 24 fantasy points per game at the moment, 14 points, 2.5 rebounds, and about 4 assists a game. And he's been absolutely fabulous as far as, let's get over here. As far as minutes and all that, he's been doing quite a bit, and that bump in minutes is going to come. 28 in the last game with 19% usage rate. His usage rate is going to come up. Last year when they didn't have D'Angelo Russell for a long period of time, Spencer Dinwiddie was playing shooting guard. He'll play the point guard position. He was putting up 30, 35. He's capable of putting 40 points or better any given night as well, because he's a pretty decent offensive player, can hit the three and get hot from there. And then, of course, he actually does defend as well. So he does a little bit of everything, fills up the stat sheet. And as you can see, 19, pretty much I would say he's about 20 to 21 probably is his usage rate, which is fantastic. The minutes are there, pretty much about 27 to 28 minutes per game. He's gonna get a bump in that. I see him getting at least over 30 from this point on in for the remainder of the season, until at least Mr. LeVert is back. And as you can see, he's not a bad free throw shooter. He's not at all. He's only missed one shot in the foul line out of 12 shots in the last 3 games. Then he got the assists, and he can definitely do some get some defense. He gets a couple of steals here and there. He's capable of getting a couple of blocks. He has to be careful with the fouls. He normally gets about 3 or 4 fouls a game. He's got to stay away from that. If he cleans that up a little bit, he's only going to help his own self out, his team out, and his teammates, as well as us fantasy players that decide to put him in our lineups. So I really like the matchup for him with Dinwiddie. My only concern is, like I said, that's the only concern I have is the fouls. But other than that, Miami's 27th in defending point guards thus far this year, near the bottom of the league, 25th in fantasy points allowed per game. That's the 5th most in the league, 36.5 fantasy points per game. You have to definitely attack Miami in the guard situation. They've given up 47 to Wall, 35 to Collison, 39 to Mr. Jackson, Reggie Jackson, 51 to Trae Young, 40 to De'Aaron Fox, and 58 to Damian Lillard. So they've given up tons and tons of fantasy points to point guards. I could see Dinwiddie getting a bump up, maybe 32 to 33 minutes or more starting as of tonight. And it's an excellent opportunity for Mr. Dinwiddie to do some justice here. We come down here as far as a budget play. The one guy that stands out to me as far as value, as far as like just getting under that 4K mark, you got Emmanuel Mudiay. We just found out that Emmanuel Mudiay is going to start for the Knicks, not Frank Ntilikina. So Mudiay may be someone there, but he's at 4K. I would come down to $100 more and go to Patty Mills at $3,900. You need 19, 20 minutes out of him, and he's getting the minutes, and he's capable of getting you the points. And that's what I like best here. 21 through 27 minutes pretty much in the last 3 games. And as you can see, he's been averaging 17 to as much as 22 fantasy points during that same stretch. So at $3,900, you pretty much need about 19, 20 minutes. And if he can get you 19, 20 fantasy points, 1 fantasy point per minute, he will not be a bad play at all. And if you can find somebody that can get you the minutes and is able to get off shots and is capable of giving you a little bit of an upside, that is even an added bonus. And Patty Mills can do that for you. As you can see, he put up 37, so he's got 30-point upside here. So he may be not a bad play at all, Patty Mills. Let's go over to the cruncher at shooting guard. Excuse me, at point guard. And let's go find Mr. Mills. He's right here. And as you can see, he doesn't take a whole lot of shots, but when he needs to, he will. He took 22 shots here 3 games ago and 14 the game prior to that. So he's going to take some shots. He's going to, have opportunities to put up some fantasy points for us. And like I said, again, if he's getting the minutes and he's getting at least some shots off and he's capable of scoring 19 to 20 fantasy points and have some upside, you definitely will like to have him as a budget play. He is someone that can be very sneaky here. So Patty Mills is definitely someone in play for me. We'll go over to shooting guard. And at shooting guard today, I'm all over my boy Jrue Holiday. 9,000. He's the highest priced shooting guard here today, but I think he has the best opportunity out of the ones that are at the top. He's coming in here averaging 19.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 9 assists, 42 fantasy points per game at 9,000. You pretty much need 45. He is capable of it. As you can see, he's had 45 or better in 4 straight games. There's 44.8. You round that off to 45. He's had 4 straight games at 45 and has 2 50-point games smashed in between those 4 games. And then on DK, he's 8,500. You pretty much only need about 41, 42, pretty much 42 there. So very much attainable. That's about his average right now. The minutes are there. Let's go to the cruncher. And on the fantasy cruncher, we'll look for Mr. Jrue Holiday. And as you can see, he has been just absolutely incredible this year. His lowest game total has been 35 fantasy points. So if that's his floor, I'm willing to take a stab at that, knowing that he'll be only 10 fantasy points off from his 7 fantasy points away from his average. But this is fantastic. 2 50-point games, like I said. Everything is pretty much 40 fantasy points or better. The minutes are there. He's getting about 36 minutes on average a game. The usage rate is about 24-25%. And look at the shots, taking about 15 to 16 shots on average a game from the floor and about 4 or 5 threes per game as well. And he gets to the foul line. He's not a bad free throw shooter. He gets the assists, gets some rebounds. He does a little bit of everything, fills up the stat sheet. Defensively, he's good too. Look at this. 4, 5, 6 steals in the last 3 games and 3 blocks. Double-digit scoring all the time. He's going up against Minnesota. Minnesota right now at the moment is 4th in defending shooting guards, but they are 28th in fantasy points allowed to shooting guards thus far this year. So they have had their issues there as far as fantasy points are concerned. They have been allowing 28.4 fantasy points per game. They have only faced one elite shooting guard all year long, and that's one of the reasons why it's only 28.4. And that was Donovan Mitchell, who put up 39.5 against them. 39.5. Other than that, Buddy Hield put up 29 and McCollum put up 26. So really haven't really faced a major elite shooting guard other than, I would say, Donovan Mitchell. That's pretty much it. And they're going to go up against a guy here that can put up almost 50 on any given night to anyone, especially in a vulnerable position like this where Minnesota right now doesn't have Jimmy Butler anymore. They're right now still transitioning to the new guys. So we don't know who's going to defend Mr. Holiday tonight, but I am willing to take a stab and put him in most of my lineups. So I'm going to have some exposure to Mr. Drew Holiday. My value play, going to stay with those Brooklyn guys, okay? And you got to have some exposure to Mr. Allen Crabbe. You just have to. At 4,400, his minutes is going to be bumped up at least by 5 minutes. He's averaging 23 to 27 over the last 3 games. So I would figure he's going to get closer to 30 minutes, possibly, from this point on in. So him and Dinwiddie, I think, are going to get quite a bit of minutes. You could also consider Carroll as well. But I think it's going to be more Allen Crabbe and Spencer Dinwiddie, especially that Dinwiddie is capable of scoring in bunches. But Allen Crabbe, he has 6.5 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 13 fantasy points per game. 4,400, you need 22. And on DK, he is 3,800, you only need 18. Now, granted, he hasn't been at that 20 and 18 here, but he's getting the minutes. And now he knows he's going to have to be very, very, good as far as getting offense going. He's going to have to make some shots. And that's been his issue. If we look at it, his numbers, we're going to look at him right now. When I took a look at him, his numbers have been crummy. Mr. Crabbe, where are you? Here you go. Now look at these numbers for Allen Crabbe. 24 minutes, 28 minutes, 23 minutes. Usage rate has been good. Last 2 games, 18%. But look at this. 2 of 9, 1 of 8, 3 of 7, 3 of 12, 2 of 9, 2 of 7, 1 of 6, 2 of 8, 4 of 11. I mean, he's gone like 8, 9 games where he's been shooting under 30%, 35%. And look at the threes, taking 5 or 6 threes a game and only hitting 1 at a time. He needs to bury these shots. I'm willing to take a stab at him at 4,400 because we know he's going to get more of a bump of minutes and he's going to have more opportunity, more usage, and he's going to have to take a few more shots than just his 9 or 8 that he's getting right now. So something's got to give. He's going to have to bury some shots. Maybe with more shots and more time on the floor, he'll get in rhythm and he'll be able to land and bury these shots. So I am willing to take a stab at Mr. Allen Crabbe here today. Mr. Crabbe is going up against Miami. Miami 21st in defending shooting guards this year, 16th in fantasy points per game allowed to shooting guards, allowing 23.3 fantasy points per game. They've given up 54 whopping to Mr. Oladipo. Buddy Hield put up 46. McCollum put up 34. They held down Mr. Jeremy Lamb at 14 and Mr. Kent Bazemore at 16. But nonetheless, I think Allen Crabbe is right there in that vicinity of a Lamb or something like that where he is capable of hitting threes and hitting the perimeter shot and putting himself in position to put up 20 to 25, which is what we really need him to do to meet value. So Allen Crabbe definitely in play for me. And if you're looking for some budget plays, man, there is one guy that obviously stands out, and he played last night, and that is Mr. Where are you? David Nwaba. And Nwaba for Cleveland, they know they got himself a good kid here. This kid last year came up numerous times, came through for the Chicago Bulls last year. So David Nwaba is definitely in play. The minutes are there. He's played 3 straight games in a row, 13 minutes or better. At 3,500, you only need 15, folks, and he's 3,200 on DK. Now, granted, after last night's good performance, he's going to be a little more popular tonight. But I am still willing to at least throw him in there in one of my budget, as a budget play. At 3,500, he is bare minimum, and he has 30-point upside, as he already showed by putting up 30 last night. So he can get you 1 fantasy point per minute. At this price here, you need 15, and you pretty much need 15 on DK, more or less, just to meet value. And if he's getting more than 15 minutes and he's able to give you more than 1 fantasy point per minute, he's definitely someone you should consider. And if he has upside, and he does, he's showing he can get you 30. That'll be 6x at this price. You cannot pass up an opportunity to get someone like this in a matchup where Cleveland right now, because of all their injuries, they need all these guys to perform and to make sure that everybody contributes as far as offensively, as far as points are concerned. So David Nwaba definitely in play. They're going up against they are playing whom again? Cleveland's playing Washington. 14th, 17th in defending shooting guards, 14th in fantasy points allowed to shooting guards, allowing 26.2 fantasy points per game. They did give up 31 and 34 to 2 games to Evan Fournier. Mr. Josh Richardson scored a 37 on them. Other than that, they really haven't faced anybody else. They faced Garrett Temple, Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Matthews, and Mr. Avery Bradley. They're really not any big elite shooting guards. Not to say that Mr. Nwaba is, but he has an opportunity here. A guy that can score. He can rebound. He can defend. He brings a little bit of everything on the table. So I think Mr. Nwaba is definitely someone you must consider at 3,500. Let's go over to small forward. At small forward, I am loving Mr. TJ Warren. He is back. TJ Warren was pretty much their leading scorer on this team for Phoenix for a couple of years before Mr. Booker made a name for himself over the last year or two. And Mr. Booker is having his issues as of late. This team is revolved around the offense, is basically around Mr. TJ Warren and Devin Booker. They are the offense. So Mr. Warren is right now, you got to play the hot ticket. And this is a guy that was a 7,000, 7,500, maybe even as high as 7,700 player as far as price is concerned just last year. And right now he's still priced fairly well. 16 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 26.8, pretty much a 27 fantasy point total per game for Mr. TJ Warren. 6,400, you need about 32, very much attainable for him, especially the way he's been playing and the minutes that he's been getting. On DK, he is 5,800, you only need 28, and that's pretty much close to his average right now. Let's go over to the Fantasy Cruncher. And at small forward, Mr. TJ Warren. And as you can see, 5 out of his last 7 games, he has met value or at least crushed it. His price tag obviously is making a jump up, and that's quite understandable. 40, 37, and 42. In the last 3 games, 40, pretty much 37 to 38 minutes on average. And look at his usage rate gone up to about 20%. He's averaging about 21, 22% on the usage rate pretty much over the last 8 or 9 games. And he's getting, in the last 3 games alone, he's averaging 14 to 15 shots per game from the floor, and he's taking as much as about 5 or 6 threes over that same period, that same stretch. He could rebound. He's not a big of a passer. He's more of a scorer, but he definitely is willing to rebound, and he definitely defends fairly well. As you can see here, he has 5 blocks in the last 3 games and 5 steals over the course of the last 4 games. So he is capable of doing a number of little things that we as fantasy players definitely want. If you watch me long enough, I always say it time in and time out, that, hey, you know what? We're looking for fantasy players that are able to get us some additional fantasy points other than their scoring ability. So this guy can score, and he can score in bunches, but he also goes out there and he defends. He gets a couple of steals, gets a couple of blocks, and he's willing to rebound. And that's all additional fantasy points for us, and that's what we really want to have. So he's going up here against San Antonio. San Antonio is 27th, as you can see here on the Fantasy Cruncher, in defending small forwards thus far this year. They are 23rd in fantasy points per game allowed to small forwards. They are allowing 25 fantasy points per game. They did give up 63 and 56 to LeBron James in 2 matchups this year, and basically only a 32 spot to Trevor Ariza. Other than that, they haven't really faced anybody else. They faced Mr. Shumpert, Ennis, Mr. Owandu, Mr. Wesley Johnson, and Mr. Bogdanovich. Those are guys, those are not high, elite, small forwards, guys that really are very offensive minded, are capable of putting up big fantasy points totals by getting some steals and blocks. This guy fits the mold. This guy is just perfect for that 64 price range. And we got to take advantage of that price before he's at 7,500, which if he has a great game here tonight, that's going to probably jump up all the way to about 7K. So definitely love Mr. TJ Warren here today as my small forward stud. As far as value, I'm going to come down. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just like the Brooklyn Nets, you got to take advantage of the Cavaliers situation. And I'm going to, I definitely like, again, before I go to Jeff Green, Evan Turner is in my radar as well as Trevor Ariza for the same price. Ariza's at 4,600. Evan Turner is at 43. These are the guys that you want to get that have 30-point upside and playing 20 to 25 minutes or so. Jeff Green, at this price, 4,300, you really need 21. And he's 4,200 on DK. Pretty much 21 is what you need. And he's averaging more than 20 minutes per game, especially in the last 3 games. But like you see, pretty much for the last 5 games, he's been pretty much averaging that. He's getting double digits in the last 3 games. He had a double-double here against Miami, 19 and 10. The last 2 games, he's at 32 and 33 fantasy points. That's more weight. That's about a 1.2 fantasy points per minute. You cannot, you cannot just avoid someone like this. This is someone you definitely have to have at least in your player pool to make a decision on. Jeff Green is definitely in a good spot here. We'll come over here and look at him a little bit closer. Jeff Green. And as you can see, his usage rate in the last game, 21% in 21 minutes, 6 of 7, 4 of 5. Look how efficient he was. He took 7 shots and hit 6 of 7 and 4 of 5 from 3. He's been just dynamite. The last 3 games, he has been so good, easily over 60, 70% shooting from the floor over the last 3 games. So, when you're looking at something like this at 4,300, you need 21. You want to see that he's getting 20 to 22, 23 minutes or better. And you want to see that he has at least been able to get 1 fantasy point per minute, meaning that he'll need 23 for 23. Or he has 23 point and he has 30 or 35 point upside. Man, hell yeah, you definitely want to be able to put him down on your list. So Jeff Green is definitely in play for me today going up against Washington. We want to keep picking on Washington with how poor they've been playing thus far this year defensively in every position. Washington here, 12th against small forwards, 24th in fantasy points allowed to small forwards, though, allowing 27.6 fantasy points per game. They've given up 43 to Barnes, 35 to George, 34 to Kyle Anderson, and they gave 53 to Mr. Kevin Durant. So, again, he's not in that neighborhood, but I could see him putting up just as much as like a Kyle Anderson. I can see him getting 25 to 30 easily, and I can, and we know that he has 30-point upside. So Jeff Green could be a very, very nice play here at 4,300. And like I said, I also have some exposure to Mr. Turner, and I also like Mr. Ariza there. If you're looking for budget at small forward, there's 2 guys that stand out, and they're right next to each other here, and that's Mario Hezonja of the New York Knicks at 3,800. Pretty much need 18, and then you also have Mr. Dorian Finney-Smith, and Finney-Smith stands out more to me because he is playing a little bit more minutes than Mr. Hezonja, but at the same time, he's also scoring a little bit more. In the last 2 games, 25 and 32 minutes, and then, of course, 11 and 6 is pretty nice here. 22.7 fantasy points. He has 30-point upside. For that price, you need 18 minutes to 20 minutes, and you need about 18 fantasy points, and he is capable of getting it done. He's getting the minutes. It's just a matter about making some shots, getting opportunities to score. So we come over here real quickly. We'll take a look at him, and we'll see how many shots he's been getting. Well, he's getting 6 or 7. He's pretty much getting about 4 or 5 a game. But in the last 2 games, he's taken 13 shots from the floor and 7 from 3. And he likes to take the 3, and he has actually been fairly good with the 3. 3 or 4 here, 2 of 2, 1 or 2, 2 and 4. So I would figure he's in that 45, 50% average thus far as shooting from 3. So someone to consider here, all right? So keep that guy in your radar, all right? Finney-Smith and Mr. Hezonja. All right, let's go to power forward. At power forward, Anthony Davis, I will have some exposure to, but I'm going to come right down to Aaron Gordon. I think at 7,800, we know this guy is about an 8,500 price tag player, so we're still getting him a little bit fairly cheap. He's been playing fairly well as of late, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 33.6 fantasy points per game, so he's pretty much at a 34 spot. And at 7,008, you pretty much need 38, and on DK, he's 7,700, you need 37. So 37 to 38, very much attainable for Aaron Gordon. He has 50-point upside. He put 44 in his last game in 33 minutes against Washington. 18 points, 10 rebounds, had a double-double, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. And he's been slightly uptrending. His average has been 33, and we have seen here 5 straight games, because you don't count this one because he didn't play. 5 straight games at pretty much 34 or better. So he is definitely in an uptrend. Let's come over to the cruncher. Let's take a look at him a little bit more. And Mr. Gordon all the way down here. And as you can see, numbers have been pretty darn good. Minutes, 32 to 33 pretty much on average. His usage rate is about 21, 22% on average, which is good. And then over here, of course, offensively, 13 to 14, maybe anywhere between 14 to 15 shots per game. And he also takes a few threes a game, about 4 on average over the last 4 or 5 games. And he has not missed from the foul line, so when he's aggressive, he can get in and get into the foul line. He has been pretty good there as well. And, of course, we know he can rebound, and he has those days where he can get a couple blocks and get some steals. So he is a decent defender as far as doing that. So everything that we would want to look for in a player. Going up against Philadelphia, and let's see how he did against Philly. All right, 46 spot earlier this year. He already played them. He put up a 47 spot in the last game, and that was back on the 20th of October. So it was about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Last year, he put up a 38 and 40. So he's capable of putting up 39, 40 against this team, but he already put up 46 this year. I love it. Philly coming in 13th at defending power forwards, 21st in the league as far as fantasy points allowed to the power forward position, allowing 23.5 fantasy points per game. But they have been solid. Philly has been solid as of late, but then again, they made the trade. There's no Dario Saric. There's no Robert Covington. Okay, so now that all changes. So that's one of the other reasons why I penciled in Mr. Gordon is right now he has a favorable matchup about who's going to defend him going into tonight. So they did give up only these are the guys that have played. In the last 5 games, they held Winslow down, Mr. Jaren Jackson, Mr. Williams, Mr. Dudley, and Mr. Thaddeus Young. They did give up big games to Blake Griffin, who is obviously an elite power forward, 61. Mr. Siakam put up 42 against them and 35 by Mr. Gallinari. So, if Gallinari, Siakam could get 35 to 42, I think Mr. Gordon can get you 40 or better. So Mr. Gordon is my stud power forward of the day for today. We go over to value. I'm going to come down to someone that I have not picked in a long while, and that's Mr. Derrick Favors. 5,300. Derrick Favors, probably a little bit under everybody's under the radar here. 5,300 for Mr. Favors. You need about 26. He's averaging 11.7 rebounds, and he's putting up 26.4 fantasy points per game. At 5,003, you need about 26. On DK, he's 4,600. So you only need about 22, 23 there to meet value, and he has been over that. 22, 26, 23, 38, 34, 22, 30. I mean, he's been at 23 or better for 5, 6 straight games. And he's averaging pretty much anywhere between 23 to 27 minutes. Let's come over here. And Mr. Favors. And as you can see, 3 30-plus point games here. 33, 34, and 38 in those games, pretty much 25 to 28 minutes. And the usage rate, we don't expect a whole lot from him because he's more of a guy that is under the boards. So he gets a lot of putbacks. He gets a lot of easy buckets, 4 or 5. But what we want to see from him is the rebounding and the defense, and that's what he does bring. 2 steals, 1 block, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 2 blocks. He's pretty consistent at least getting those. He gets some rebounds, and he basically can score underneath, and he is physical enough to get on to the foul line, get fouled, and get on the foul line, and be able to convert those free throws as well. He's going up against Dallas, who is right now currently second in defending power forwards thus far this year, but they are 28th, third to last in fantasy points allowed per game. Go figure, 24.3 fantasy points per game. But they have been trending upward as of late. They gave up 45 to Gay, 32 to Kuzma, 34th to Mr. Favors. They actually already played against. He already has played against them and put up 34. Jeremy Grant put up 26, and Jabari Parker put up 25. They haven't faced an elite power forward thus far this year. I mean, those are basically the most notable names that they have played against, and he already put up 34 against them, which is right here, which I forgot to point out when I was looking at it. Again, pretty good spot for Derrick Favors. I think at 5,300, he is not a bad play. If you're looking for value or for a budget play here, there are a couple guys that I have been looking at. We just found out that Kevin Knox is going to be playing. He's 4,400. He's going to come into the starting lineup for the Knicks, the rookie. Not going to point him out here, but under 4K, I like to give you the budget of under 4K. Kelly Olynyk could be a viable option, as well as Ed Davis and as well as Max Kleber. Mr. Kleber definitely stands out more to me, just simply because he's at home for one. He has played. His home and away splits have been better at home. Not only that, he is more closer to what I'm looking for as far as possible upside. 38. He's at 7 points a game, 3.8 rebounds, pretty much 4 rebounds a game, 17 fantasy points. And at 3,800, you really need about 17 or 18. And he is about the same price on DK, probably slightly a little lower. I didn't check him out. But what intrigues me about him is that you only need 18 or 19 minutes or better to pay this price. At the same time, we also want to see about 18 or 19 fantasy points or better. And he's doing that over the last 2 games. He's been solid with that, 21 and 26 respectively. So that definitely has intrigued me. And, of course, he is going up against Utah, and Utah, has given up a few fantasy points, not too much there. But again, we're looking for budget. He is definitely someone to consider here, as well as, like I said, Ed Davis for Brooklyn against Miami would not be a bad play as well, and as well as Kelly Olynyk, due to the fact that he has that 30, 35-point upside. So those guys all have that upside that you may want to be looking for. At center, I love Embiid. I may have a little exposure to him. He's not a core for me at 11K. You need about 55 there. Towns against New Orleans could be interesting. Same thing with Whiteside. I kind of like him in this matchup too against Brooklyn, but you need 47 there. But I'm going to come all the way down to Rudy Gobert. 8,500, and even Mitchell Vucevic could be a possible nice play at 8,200. Gobert, 8,500. You pretty much need about 42, and very much attainable. That's his average right now. He's averaging 42.6, pretty much a 43 spot. 16 points, 13.5 rebounds. He usually gets a double-double pretty much every single game. So he's a double-double pretty much every single day. Let's put it plain and simple. Okay? And looking at the minutes and all that, let's go right over to the fantasy crunch because I love reading it from here. And we'll come down to Rudy Gobert. And I just love the whole entire matchup. Mr. Gobert, look at this. 40s all the way through. He had these 3, games that he did not meet value, and he was priced pretty high, so that was disappointing. But his number, man, look at how high he was. He was at $10,000. That's a crazy discount. He's $8,500 right now. He went down $200 more from his last 2 games price. Minutes are there. Pretty much 32 to 33 minutes a game, maybe even as much as 34. Usage rate, subpar, probably about 16, 17% per game. But he's more of a putback guy, easy baskets. Look for him for alley-oops, getting some dunks, some easy, putback, stuff like that. That's basically what he does. But what we like is that he's very efficient. When he gets under the board, even if he's very, very close, he's going to basically convert those layups and dunks. Then he'll come over here. He can get to the foul line and get some free throws. And then, of course, the most important thing that he brings to the table is the rebounding. All those fantasy point totals we get from rebounds that we love from Rudy Gobert. And then on top of that is his defense. He's capable of getting steals, but he's more of a shot blocker. Look at this, 5, 9, 10. I mean, he's pretty much getting 1 or 2 blocks a game. And in the last 3 games, he's gotten 9 blocks. That's a lot of fantasy points, additional fantasy points that we love to get from the big men. So I love Mr. Gobert here. He's going up against Dallas, 27th. We love picking on Dallas too. I've done it a few times this year. They definitely struggle against big men. 27th in defending centers, and they are dead last in fantasy points per game given up to centers, giving a whopping 38.5 fantasy points per game. They already have played against Gobert. Gobert has already played them twice, put up 47 in one game and 57 in another. Okay, show you that real quickly right there. 47 and 57. Smashed it at that price tag of 89 and 83. And they've given up 53 to Mr. McGee and 41 to the rookie of the Knicks, Mr. Robinson. So, yeah, Mr. Gobert is in a good spot here to do very well again today. All right, so Rudy Gobert is definitely my stud center for today. Put the savings, You can get someone else with the savings there. Him compared to Mr. Embiid, that's a big price tag difference. You could consider Mr. Vucevic here as well. I'm going to come down. And I like Tristan Thompson. I gave you guys him yesterday. He turned out to be great. I think he's someone to definitely consider again today against Washington. I mean, Dwight Howard is not the same Dwight Howard of old. He's not the greatest defender. He's not bad, but he just doesn't work hard enough. Let's put it that way. So Tristan Thompson is, someone definitely I'm going to have some exposure to. But, just to give you guys even something cheaper, I kind of like the idea of going after Tyson Chandler, 4,200. You only need 20 fantasy points, 21, and he is getting some time now in LA. 21, 23, and 22 minutes. That's exactly where you want to be at for that price tag, and then you want to see if he's capable of getting you the 20 fantasy points or better, and he can. And we know that he can get you almost 30 any given night because he's a rebound machine. And Tyson's best attributes are rebounding and shot blocking. And any given night, he can get you 4, 5, 6 blocks. As you can see in the last game, he got 3. So I am in favor of some Tyson Chandler. And we come over here, not a big, sample size for him because he hasn't played a whole lot since he's been at LA, but they brought him there for a reason, and that's just obviously to give some minutes to someone else other than Mr. McGee. And as you can see, 12 and 5, 17 rebounds in 2 games. And look at the blocks, 4 and then 3 steals. He's not going to score a whole lot offensively. He gets a lot of putbacks and stuff like that. But the rebounding and blocking is what you will get. So I would say if you want some value, at that price, I think he's not a bad possible play. I'm not, and I chose him more at that price range. There are a couple guys that I like here as well other than him, but I did it simply because just to give you somebody because he's closer to that budget line. There's really nobody at center. Center is a spot that you really sometimes want to pay up a little bit depending on the matchups, and today's slate there's really nobody here at the bottom. I mean, there's nobody here other than you may want to go with Baines or Muscala for Philadelphia at 3,700. Maybe Bam, maybe even Nolas Noel at 3,700. All those guys, I would say you could possibly have some exposure to. But I'm not in favor of it. I rather just stick to the guys at the top today. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. There goes your stud 5, value 5. I gave you some budgets. I try to give you one in each position. Like I said, man, drop a like on the video. I appreciate it. Share the video with others. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so down below. Make sure you put on that bell icon so this way you don't miss out on any of the NBA or NFL stuff. And of course, if you want to you want to get an invite to the Slack chat group where we discuss the slate maybe usually about a half hour to an hour before lock, you can do that. That will be in the description of the video down below, as well as all my other social media, from Facebook group all the way through the Twitter, as well as the Instagram, and so on and so forth. Again, we also comment back and forth here right in the video comment section. So if you have any questions regarding cash plays or any other actual plays any other plays that I've given you today, as well as anything else, because it is a large slate, so you can go a lot of different ways, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of different ways. I'm just trying to give you a couple of just my thoughts and my insight on more or less what I think are the best plays, at least in my book for me today. But of course, my player pool is about 42, 43 players right now at this very moment, so I got to narrow that down over the next few hours, and I may have some other possible plays for you guys later as well. So again, drop a like, drop a sub, and I'll see you guys on the next video.